July 14th, 2020 at 7:09 p.m. and we are meeting as the Provo City School District Board of Education in our business meeting. We will begin with a roll call. I am Jim Pedersen, Board President.
Keith Rattel, Superintendent.
Bonnie Totkus, Executive Assistant.
Stephanie Bryan, Business Administrator.
Suraj Sayal, Special Education Director.
Jason Cox, Human Resources.
Jennifer Partridge, Board Member. Suzanne Livingston with the Utah County Health Department.
And let's see, and then we've got Todd.
Todd McKee, Secondary Ed.
Anne Marie.
Anne Marie Harrison, Teaching and Learning.
Doug.
Doug Finch, Student Services.
Rebecca.
Rebecca Nielsen, Board Member.
Nate.
Nate Bryson, Board Member.
McKay.
Kate Jensen, Board Member.
Melanie.
Melanie Hall, Board Vice President.
Julie.
Julie Roush, Board Member.
Mark.
Mark Wheeler, Director of Facilities.
Caleb.
Caleb Price, Communications.
Alex.
Alex Judd, Elementary Ed.
I think we got everybody. So, welcome. We'll have some remarks by Board Member Nate Bryson.
Hey, I would, first of all, I'd just like to say thanks to all the hard work that you guys have put into this. I've been amazed at the breadth of coverage that the district has organized around and all the different contingencies that they provided for. And, you know, I also want to thank all the teachers and all the other employees who are going to be willing to work with us this year. I know we've put them in a tough spot, and I really appreciate it. With that, I'll start with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for our many blessings. And as we enter this new year, please bless this district, the teachers, the students, and guide all of those that make the decisions, that they'll make right choices. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, Nate. And then, just remind me,
Suzanne Livingston.
do any of you board members have any questions for Suzanne Livingston? She's with us and would like you, if you have any questions, she's happy to answer any of those questions. Let's take care of that right now
Her too.
so that she can get out and on her way. She's had a long day. Questions? McKay?
So, do we need to make a conscious choice? So in the state's revised plan, as COVID initially hit, the health departments were very much at the forefront of sort of authoritatively speaking. And in the new guidelines from the state, it says they are in an advisory role. Seeing that no one here is a health professional, I think your role is going to be a little bit stronger than merely advisory. But how do you see that advisory role, or what authority is there? Is there going to be a point where you make the really strong recommendation on something that we need to do, or how active is the health department going to be in that? That just made it a little fuzzy. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. You know, it's going to be, we'll work together, collaboration with all three districts. That's what we want. That as far as we have a medical sick policy that has been updated to add the COVID-19 questions or guidelines in case somebody is positive. There's other sick problems too that, you know, it's part of the medical sick policy that has been updated, but it has to go past the Board of Health on the 27th of this month. Once that is signed, then that will be part of going out to all three districts that they could, these are the guidelines that we suggest from the health department. And plus there is that little gap that what happens if a student is positive, what do we do in the class? So those are the guidelines that I'm working with the environmental, EPI, and Ralph Clegg, and we will get those guidelines in place, because we do have, like I mentioned before, the state, if we have a positive case, who's the point of contact? We have that in place, but there's a piece before that. So yes, we do want to have those guidelines to help to give to you guys of what to do. I don't know if that answers your question. I think we are an advisory, but I want to work together. I plan, this is what I put, I want to have like an emergency group, just in case. If we have a case of a problem, I've already got my group, hey, let's get together, we need to meet with Provo School District, decide what we need to do for this situation, if it is a school or a classroom, and that would be your superintendent, Doug Finch, and maybe Gary, that work with the school nurses, whomever, and then the health department one from EPI, and environmental, like I mentioned, and Ralph and Dr. Flinders. We will, as a team, we would coordinate situation by situation. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Are there other questions for Suzanne?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, let's say we have someone in a classroom that tests positive. Now that we're having everybody wear masks and everything, does that change the response? Like, is it possible that we have someone who's positive, but we don't need to close the whole classroom?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Depends on, that's why the social distancing is so important, wearing the mask. And the teachers all have those guidelines. Yes, the teacher could either possibly wear a face covering, maybe a face shield, if they need to visit with the kids, and so they can see their mouth working, or speech people, or our special needs kids, face shield will work well to help with those, facilitate that. Yes, if, it depends on, we look at the whole situation. If there was close contact and nobody was wearing their mask, or everybody, then yes, we would have to work on a case by case, and then we might, who are the kids around the student that were 6 feet, or, that's why the classroom roster for
Seating assignment?
seating assignment is so very important for that contact tracing. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, yeah, that's
Okay,
very helpful.
perfect.
I have a question. I'm not sure if this is best directed at Suzanne or if it'll come up later in our conversation, but I know that in the plan as it's written out, and as Keith was talking, we talked about exceptions to this mask mandate. At what point do those exceptions suddenly compromise the mandate? Because I've already heard from people, there are people that are just flat out going to refuse to wear masks. We just are, and so I don't know how we're gonna handle that or how we're gonna address that, but at some point also, I would think if we have too much of that happening, then at what point does it become a problem?
At least from my perspective, you've got the options in place. If somebody refuses to wear a mask, or, there's health situations that somebody can't wear a mask. They could be offered a face shield that could be used. But, they also have the other options. They have the options of doing the online. And so I think that would be to deal with on the case with the principal and the school help, here at the level here at the district. So I'm not exactly sure with all of those.
Sure, and I think that, as far as policy goes and what we want to do in those situations, I get that, but do you have any feel for how not wearing masks is going to compromise the whole plan?
Well,
Does that make sense?
I think if you have one kid saying, well, then I'm not gonna wear it, well, then I'm not gonna wear it, then yes. And then if we have a health situation, yes, it could shut down a school.
Okay,
It's like a football
So-
team, or let's say the basketball team of the Jazz. What one person did who tested positive, it shut down a whole
Right.
NBA. So, yes, it could be that dramatic.
so So what I'm hearing then is we'd be advised to be very careful about those exceptions that we might be granting. And I know the plan kind
Yeah.
of spelled that out, but
Yeah.
we've got to take those exceptions very seriously, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Hey, can I jump in on this question? Julie, there is, and I had this was kind of an issue I had with the overall document, but the ADA, there's a number of, like law firms that protect Americans with Disabilities Acts. They do lawsuits in that area. And they have, some really good guidance on when, a disability should qualify for a mask, or when, you should use some kind of other thing that's similar to a mask. And I think if we incorporate some of those guidelines, it would help us avoid a lot of these issues. So maybe I'll share that after, but
Yeah.
it's just something I found.
And I think that's my hope, as long as people are willing to cooperate. It's those people that aren't, and I've already heard from a couple of them that I'm more concerned about, so.
You're not the only one.
And that'll be policy wise, so we'll handle that as well as we can.
Any additional questions?
Okay,
Okay, great.
Suzanne, thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me to come, and I'm glad I was able to.
And we'll see you on the
Thank you.
28th, in our next meeting.
Yes,
Thank
Thank
you.
you for being here.
thank you.
Suzanne, please tell Ralph, thank you for his long hours and all the things that he's doing as well. I know that this is
Yes.
a huge effort for an underfunded and understaffed, part of government. And so probably no one says thank you enough, so thank you.
You know
for
what?
everyone in that.
I will take that to him, and he will be very appreciative. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all that you do for the kids here in Provo. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Item A, approval of policy 6170 to grant application management. Or let's see, Keith? We need to approve both these policies this evening. So, we'll go ahead and approve these separately. Is there a motion to approve policy 6170 grant application management?
I move that we approve the revised policy and procedure 6170 grant application management.
Motion by Board Member Hall,
Second that?
I'll second that.
second by Board Member Partridge. Is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, please indicate by raising your hand.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the change to policy 4006 P2 student travel? If you remember, this is allowing us to treat Las Vegas as an in-state travel destination, allowing the superintendent to have the flexibility to approve those requests. Looks like a motion by Board Member Bryson.
Yeah, I move that we approve, revised policy and procedure 4006 P2 student travel with any edits agreed to in the study session.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Second by Board Member Rash. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate. Looks like the motion passes unanimously. Item B, is there a motion to approve the bond resolution?
I move we adopt resolution number 001-2020, official ballot proposition for the Provo City School District, Utah special bond election to be held on November 3rd, 2020.
Motion by Board Member Partridge. Is there a second to the motion?
I second that.
Second by Board Member Nielsen. Is there any additional discussion or further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate. The motion passes unanimously.
Just real briefly,
That will go up to the Lieutenant Governor's office, if not tomorrow, by Thursday, so that they will have the notification, and your bond is underway.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate all of the behind-the-scenes work you've done on that.
Officially underway.
Okay, item C is the approval of the return to school plan. Now, this plan needs to be prepared and submitted by August 1st. We realize that there will be perhaps maybe a few edits and changes to this, Keith.
Depending on the questions tonight.
And so, before we can have any further discussion, we need to have a motion. Is there a motion to approve the return to school plan?
Are we doing it in the form it's currently in?
What we need to do is we need to have a motion so that we can approve acting on it, so we can have additional discussion. I know Jennifer has questions that she wants to ask. Rebecca may have some additional questions,
Sure,
and there
let's
may
keep
be other questions that are going to come up. And so the motion is to approve the plan, but we will need to have a discussion to see if there is additional information to add or changes to make. So that we can move forward with the discussion, we need to have a motion.
It won't be approved, Nate, until we vote to approve it.
Okay.
I'll make the motion. I move we approve the return to school plan.
Is there a second to the motion? Melanie?
I'll second.
So, motion by Board Member Rash, second by Board Member Hall. Further discussion on the motion. It's open for any questions that you have, things we need to address, and so, McKay?
I think it's important to explain to the public what we're trying to accomplish. And if let me give it a shot at what I believe we're trying to accomplish. We are not opening the schools on any point of political philosophy. We are not opening the schools to assure funding and continued funding for the school district. We're not opening the schools because it's our whim or preference, individually or otherwise. What we are trying to accomplish is to mobilize an enormous piece of public infrastructure that is designed for the public good to get into the fight of against the virus. Meaning that we're trying to, that all of the tax dollars and all of the good that schools can do and are designed to do cannot sit out a fight for our community's life, for a fight for our economy, for a fight for our health, and all those other things. That's the only reason I see to work at opening a school. In doing that, that means that our school priorities are not necessarily Romeo and Juliet and 3x3 and some of the normal things that we do, which we will continue to do because it's what we need to do. But I suspect that in the first week of school, a lot of it is going to be hand washing and its importance. That has an enormous benefit for our community all the way down. A lot of our instruction is going to be, unfortunately, don't touch your neighbor. That's going to be hard in a kindergarten classroom, and hard in a first grade classroom, and hard in a 11th grade English classroom. But it is the good that our community needs right now. And we are a piece of community infrastructure that needs to be involved in doing good for our community. And I hope that we can articulate that a little bit in our plan so that if we are needed, we can be there. I also think that our goal of every day, every student face to face should not be confused with our method. And part of that method in how to, with this moving target, when do we limit hours in the building? How do we, might be something, some of the other districts are already talking about that. It's their collaboration schedule every day, so the teachers have more time. But how, in that plan, it's going to change and going to be different. We need to look at what we can do. But if we're not acting as a board or the administration to say, we're in charge. We are the inviters to a battle. And our teachers are scared to death. The comments on our YouTube they're very nervous, and they're most at risk. And we need to invite them to and empower them to make some choices. And that's scary. Even in grocery stores, they've gotten, those workers certainly knew that they were being invited to a battle when everything else was closed and we still need people to stock the shelves for minimum wage or work behind a register. And that's when we started seeing some accommodations. And those accommodations for our teachers, we have allowed. But first we need to invite them to the big idea of what we're trying to do, of just do the best we can for our community and our patrons and our students. Because these are good people. But we have to invite them. We can't tell them. And there's going to be some hard things, but if they understand some of the big things that we're trying to do, and some people just equate this to babysitting. It is not. We're going to teach kids a lot of science, a lot about microbes. Like schools are important because it's where we learn how to cheer for each other and how do we take care of each other. And that's what our community needs. And we can't do it alone, and we can't do it as an admin team or a board just by saying, these are the instructions, do it. We have to invite people to the big idea and appeal to some of the best things that we have, because people are willing to give a lot. And we're going to ask a whole lot. And it's going to take a lot of understanding that masks in kindergarten are actually different than masks in AP English and masks in first grade. And we need to know, we need to tell our teachers when their opportunities to learn those differences are and when they're going to do that. I know that we've approved 12 additional hours but also some of our expectations. We also need to change our expectations for our parents about attendance and what's going to be required there, and what we really need them to do to help their neighbor by really looking over their symptom chart for their child every day, and take care of each other. Because what we have to do is, we're a big part of this community, and the community has to take care of each other. And it's the only way that we'll ever keep that restaurant on Center Street open, to have good things happen, to return to something, is if we all decide that we've got to help each other. And so much of that is that's what schools do. And we gotta, that's why we're getting this mammoth behemoth of a community employer at least in motion. And right now that motion is a little herky-jerky and unsteady, but it can't just sit. It's too important for our neighborhoods and for our families. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. And we need to be able to provide good information in a timely way, people can make the best decisions. And there will be a lot of options, and options means money is expended. It means we have to ask a lot of people. But we need to know what we're asking for. And it's not just going back to normal, it's actually to help our community through a really, really hard time. That's what we're trying to do. And that's what I want to work for, and I've worked harder for that and to make sure graduation rates are up. And I've worked hard for that. But that's what we've got to work for big ideas, and we've got to share those big ideas to our community. And they can know where they can contribute and where they go, you know what, I just can't send my kid, what's my next option? Because people are going to make some sacrifices. No matter what we promise now, DLI is not going to work the same. It's just not. Because we're in a fight. We're in a fight. And some things that were luxurious and wonderful that our schools could accomplish, we're going to trade for some of the things that we have to accomplish and keeping our staff healthy. And those trades are going to be hard. People need to understand them. And so I hope we can communicate some of those things to our public. And I know we've got some on this, but we just need to do our best. And that's what we need to do.
Thank you, McKay. Rebecca, what additional questions did you have that we weren't able to address during the study session?
I kind of have a comment plus question. So we did not read the full 28-page plan to everyone today because nobody wants to listen to that on this meeting. But the plan is 28 full pages long. And so there are a lot of unanswered questions. A lot of the comments on YouTube are saying that they still have no idea what they're supposed to do, this and that and the other. So I'd like to ask for some help on the action item for what people can do to now become familiar with the plan and where they can go for questions. So first, obviously, is that if you have questions, we'd like you to read the plan. And that will take some time. It took me a couple hours to get through it, but we're asking people if they have questions. I would assume that the first answer we're going to give is start by reading the plan. But after they've read the plan, if they still have questions, what can people do and where can they go when they're trying to make the decision of if they want to go online or hybrid or in person, or if they want to teach in a classroom or teach online? There's still going to be a lot of questions. So what is the process for people to do now after they've taken the time to read and then still have questions?
Keith, how would you like
Well, I
those
guess
questions addressed?
the swing I'll take at that is to say that I think we need to have them contact us with those questions. And, I mean, if the board is not going to be approving this tonight, then we'll see if we can incorporate them into the revisions. As I mentioned at the outset of my presentation, we were trying to keep this somewhat concise. I don't know that you can claim 28 pages is concise, but if there's particularly if there are overwhelming trends about questions that need answers, we'll have to work them in. And if there aren't, then we'll contact the individuals on their own. So, I mean, you can email me, you can email any administrator that you find on the district website. You can email a board member, and then they can forward them to us. So there is definitely a way to convey those questions to us.
Perfect. And then as far as the approval goes for this, I want to be clear on if I go ahead and approve this plan tonight, I'm approving it with the caveat, the idea in mind that revisions and changes can still take place, correct?
That's in the very first section of this, that this is a living document. Things will change over time. Things have changed since we took this to the editor, proofreader last week, and it was created, and then since that time, a few things have changed. So we have to be adaptable.
That's just what I wanted to make clear. I feel great about the plan that's in front of us, because especially with so many things that are still unanswered at the district level and at the state level, I feel like we've done the best we absolutely can with the information that we have. Like you stated, I believe that's the case, so I'm happy to approve it. I just want the public to be aware and feel assured that it's not finished. That we've done our best to this point, but we still will have plenty to do. And as long as I'm not approving for the plan to be final, but I'm approving for the work that's been done to this point to be set in motion and then for changes to come. So that's what I'd like to make clear.
Thank you. Nate has a say.
Nate?
So if what we're saying is, and I guess this just piggybacks onto Rebecca's comment, is if we have criticisms of the plan, now's not really the time to talk about them. We should do this, I mean, if they're small, just nitpicking about certain language and certain items, now's not the time to do it. We should do it collaboratively, or just send it into Yuki. Like, how should we go about that process?
I'm okay if, I mean, I heard what McKay said, we'll try to find a way to work something into the plan about those philosophical beliefs. I think if there are other things, maybe you mentioned earlier about 504 standards and some attorneys' recommendations, be happy to take those. If there are other things that are confusing, bring them forward, we'll get them cleared up.
Okay, so in addition to the ADA stuff, there are parts of the plan that still seem to indicate that masks were voluntary. And then there's a section where it says that the governor has required masks. So I was just worried that if the governor comes along and revokes his requirement for masks, does that mean that the plan reverts back to those other parts in the document that indicate that masks are voluntary? Or would we just revise the plan at that time? I just don't see any point in having those, I think it has to do with riding the bus and the first, yeah, there's two spots that say that it's up to the students. It's recommended to wear masks, but it's not required. I just don't want it to be stuck in a case where the governor revokes his permission and then suddenly everyone's all, well, we don't have to wear masks anymore because the governor said we don't, and your plan says it's optional. So I just want to clear that up from the language.
Okay, so what I would propose that we do, number one, it's my responsibility that those edits were not made in the areas that they should have been. I'm the one who put in the statement about the governor's mandate the other day, and I did a search and I looked for masks and I couldn't find those that you pointed out, but obviously I missed them. So we need to make it clear that we're following the governor's directive. If and when the governor revokes that, then, as I mentioned at the outset of the document, we'll go back and make further changes to it, which will align with the rules of the day.
Just to clarify
Okay,
though, can
and,
we change that right now where we, because right now it's just confusing. If you read the whole plan, it says, oh, you might wear masks, you may wear face coverings. That's why, because it's face coverings and not masks. You
Okay.
missed it. So I think we just need to have the language cohesive throughout, and it says,
We'll make it happen. Yeah.
you will.
Yeah.
We can make that part of the motion if you want, but I'll make note.
I've got it right here where both of the times I saw it are. Line 568.
My
and
challenge
that's
right
the
now,
transport-
Julie, my challenge right now is I don't have the document up, so
Okay.
I'm not able to edit it.
You can
Okay.
send that to us though in an email.
Yep. If you want to take a screenshot of that page, send it to us, we'll get it fixed.
We could just say,
Okay.
we'll in the motion, we can just say, we'll clarify that face masks and face shields will follow the governor's directed until further notified. And that we will clarify that throughout the document.
Additional changes as needed.
Okay.
And my last point is, I wouldn't be opposed to having language in there where, and maybe even some funds available where teachers can make their own classroom alterations where they can be comfortable, like erecting some plexiglass barriers between them and students, or the purchase of N95 masks, just something like that to ease some of their concerns. And that might be interesting inside the document. But those are the main changes I wanted.
Okay, thank you. Would it make any difference, Nate, if you knew that, we're going to have probably 5,000 tabletop dividers, we'll have thousands of masks, so they don't actually have to go out and find more suppliers, but we've actually done that already. That's why I went through that long slide about all the stuff that we've got. Now, if they know something else, then we could do that, yes.
No, and I appreciate that. I'm just saying, we're asking them, they're the ones who actually have to be put in a difficult position. So anything to make them comfortable, that's within reason, I think we should do our best to help them.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Not a problem.
Perhaps instead of that specific language being in the plan, that could be part of the communications to the teachers, because I assume there's gonna be another, like, letter to them with the plan.
Frequently asked questions, those
Yeah,
kinds of
so we
things.
can put that in there, we wanna support you, we want you to feel comfortable. We do have these, here's how you can get access to some of these guards and things, but if you have other things, work with your principal, and we want you to feel comfortable.
Thank you.
Becca, did we address your concerns okay?
Yeah, I have one more question though.
Okay.
When will parents have to decide which option they want for their children?
Probably the first week of August.
So will that kind of, will we see that hybrid option with enough time for them to fully consider their choices before they have to make their decision?
I believe August 1 is a Saturday, is that right? Anyway, we expect to have that as soon as it's done. I mean, I put a deadline of August
Yes.
1 on it, but as soon as we have it done, it's going out, and then we'll allow people to start signing up as soon as they're comfortable.
Okay.
And that
Will we as a board see that hybrid beforehand? I mean, before it goes out?
I can definitely bring that to you, or at least what we have built in that last week of July, when we have that meeting to approve contracts.
Yeah, I agree. So I have some questions.
Yes, Jennifer.
Okay. Some have already been asked, but I think the main one is my questions about eSchool. I would like to see, if I understand right, eSchool will have no connection to the classroom teacher. Is that correct?
Doug, I'm going to have you answer those questions. eSchool will run the way that it's always run, which is its own separate school within our school district. Doug, can you pitch in on that?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead and just. Well, I'm getting some bad feedback. Am I okay?
Go, try again, Doug. What were you saying?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting some bad feedback, but I think it's stopped now. Thank you. Yeah, again, Jennifer, just make sure to clarify your question. You're wondering about people's access to eSchool, or what function it's going to take that's different than it has in the past?
So we've told people you can have an in-school, all-in-school option, a hybrid option, or an all-at-home option. So I guess I'm clarifying, if they choose all-at-home, that means they're gonna go through eSchool with an eSchool teacher and not have any connection to a classroom teacher. Like if they're in 6th grade, they're not going to know that 6th grade teacher they would have had if they had been in school, right?
Thanks, Jennifer, for that clarification. As it stands right now, because of the transition that we've undergone with eSchool, we really have very limited staff there. We're down to bare bones because we have, I guess, changed that agreement that you guys are fully aware of as far as the third-party contractors we're working with. So we don't have all the staffing to say that we can be prepared to take the numbers that might come. This was, I think, a conversation that Jason was asked a little bit earlier about having individuals who want to work online as teachers, perhaps. They would be essentially trained and included into the eSchool staff. So we could see a scenario, Jennifer, where we would have individuals, particularly, let's say just in an elementary scenario, where an eSchool teacher, who could be an existing classroom teacher perhaps, could be trained to be able to support students who are at home. So they still have a connection back to their classroom for a teacher that they might know that already has, someone that has a great reputation in that neighborhood associated with their neighborhood school. So that's among the things that I think when Keith talks about us refining some sort of hybrid or part-time, other types of options that the public was asking for, we definitely don't see ourselves going out and hiring more people, probably using some of our existing teachers where we have lesser enrollment, and therefore we will repurpose teachers to support in the e-school mode, right? So they'll use the e-school curriculum, which is kind of a standalone, online, do-at-home curriculum, but our school teachers will be trained and able to provide support in a myriad of different ways to them, everything from their access to their participation, their engagement, questions they have, et cetera, et cetera. Does that help, Jennifer?
That is great. What I would like to see on the plan is, that on page 11, it says that, go to the website to learn more about eSchool. I think we need at least like half a page in the plan that's pretty much kind of explains some of those, because a lot of people, you guys have lived with all the terminology, you know what it means, but most parents don't know exactly what it means. And so if we can just say, if you select this option, this is generally what you're looking at, this is generally how it will go. I know another question we'll want to answer about eSchool is, people have been asking if I'm most comfortable with my child at home and I want to do the eSchool option, is there any way that they could participate still in like a band class, or some kind of sports or something? Will there be any access, especially at the secondary level, to things, the activities that tie back into the school?
So the hybrid.
Yeah, I think you're very much getting.
Let me take a swing at
Go
that
ahead.
first, Doug. I think the hybrid model we're looking at will include some classes at home and some classes at school. And so certain classes that don't work best in a home environment are likely to be part of that hybrid model option. Now, we don't have it fully developed, so that could change, but that's one of the concepts we're kicking around right now.
Helpful. So, but if we can just spell some of that out better in the plan,
We can easily do that.
that will
Yeah.
help.
When I say we, I mean Doug. More questions?
I have a quick question. I'm grateful that the school district's providing one mask in the lanyard. When I read it, it says that we're expecting the parents to, wash that and launder it on a regular basis. Is there any way we can get two so that while one's in the wash, they have one to wear?
We have paper masks as well. So you're talking about the reusable mask? Go ahead, Steph.
We also are expecting to get a second washable mask from the state Office of Education. I was at some meetings yesterday. They said their supplies are actually starting to come in. I was a little worried they'd take forever to get them, but they said they are getting them. So I think between the one we are providing and the one that will come from the State Office of Education, employees and students will end up having two washables.
Okay, great.
Other questions?
I want to jump in for just a second. I think most of my questions have been answered or asked and answered by other board members, so thank you. But going back to what I was kind of alluding to earlier, I'm a little bit concerned about the enforcement mechanisms for people who want to do the in-person and and have no interest in cooperating with the guidelines. And I didn't see that spelled out, and I don't know how we would. And so I think that's just something that, and I think partially because of things that have been said, conversations I've had, something that's kind of at the forefront of my mind right now. I think we need to somehow put something in place, because if I'm a parent and I look at all of these guidelines and I opt to put my child in school, and then I see, and I don't know that there'll be floods. I doubt that there would be. I think most people that choose that option probably will cooperate, but I also know our schools are full of kids who might not want to be wearing their masks or who aren't taking this as seriously as I would like to see them. There's also some parents that flat out, I don't want to do this, and my kid's going to school anyway. So I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. I don't know what I'm suggesting. I think I'm just more or less raising the question and the concern. Maybe the state will give us some guidance on some of that. I don't know.
So Julie, I'm interpreting your question about So we've set this standard to wear masks, and now we have a number of students who, or maybe staff, but students, let's say, who refuse to wear them, and they've got the full support of their parents. What do we intend to do about that? And I
The
have,
mask or the temperature thing or the whatever the case may
or the
be.
social
But
distancing,
yeah,
yeah.
primarily masks.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that at the moment, but there's no question we're going to have to. That is among the questions that I've been seeking answers to, and I don't have them.
Okay.
We'll have them by
And
the
I
time
think,
the school year begins.
and I think this is just my plea to, as this adapts, as you pointed out, you know, it'll be adjusted. And I think that, I mean, 2 weeks ago, we were all trying to decide if we're gonna be wearing masks in school. And we saw how abruptly that changed, right?
Right.
So I anticipate that much of this will change before we actually get there. I appreciate the effort that you guys have put in, trying to see into the future, things that we just don't know. This is the first time anybody has ever done this. We don't even have a model to follow, right? So I'm hoping that our community will be patient and understand the work that's going into this by administration, the concern that the board has. But here from me right now, I appreciate what you guys are doing. I know I'm not alone in that. So thank you.
Thank you.
To everybody really that's hearing this.
Jennifer?
So one of my questions, which leads into, I want to address what Julie was just asking. I think it could help. It's not a policy thing, but my question was about what is our communication plan once we've decided? How are we going to get this out to the teachers and out to the parents in a way that makes sense and is positive, and some succinct bullet points and things like that. But I think what would be important to have in that communications plan is encouraging our teachers, which I think most of them are going to do this anyway, encouraging our parents to set the tone and to be positive. I think if a teacher, in fact, this happened, my son's in Tempe marching band, and they've been holding summer band for the last 5 weeks, and they've been wearing their masks. And the first day, my freshman, he was not happy. I told him I want him to wear the mask. He said, I don't know, but I'll start to, and maybe I'll take it off. And he got to class that day, and the band teacher said, hey guys, thank you for bringing your masks. You need to wear them because we want our program to continue. We want everyone to stay healthy, and we want to be able to keep doing this and to be able to be here and not have to go back to the at-home thing. And that positivity from the teacher and reminding them of why we're doing it helped. And every day when I would drop off my son, there was a line of students waiting to have their temperature checked before they got in the door, and all of them were wearing their masks. And I think that just goes to show that we can encourage everybody. There's still going to be people who aren't going to cooperate, but I think especially if our teachers are setting that tone and, hey, this is just what we're going to do, and isn't it a privilege that we can be here and we want to keep that privilege, I think that can go a long way.
Thank you. Good idea.
Other questions? Okay.
Can somebody give me an update on how the Canvas PD is going? How many sessions, how much time is being put on that? And then I'll have a follow-up after that. Just how is that, what kind of penetration do we get? What percentage of our teachers are engaged to that? How much are we doing?
Anne Marie?
Sure. I'm just going to look up the most recent email. I got a report on this today. So the email went out to teachers with the plan last Wednesday, so 1 week ago. We've had a lot of interest. We can see that many people have been in the program. I'm trying to get those numbers right now for you. The feedback that I've received has been good. So we, just as some background, we worked with both an online provider of professional development and created some courses of our own. And the folks that have put together that package for 12 hours of PD have been teachers and school professional development coordinators giving feedback. I'm sorry, I'm searching through my email here, trying to find that, and here we go. So I got an email 4 hours ago saying that, so we have an intro to Canvas and a blended learning course. It's 2 hours that all complete. We have had 85 people complete that today, 134 in process. Canvas, 30, the next Canvas course, 38 completed. Today, 73. Blended learning, and we're up to 37. Then we have a multiple offerings of different kinds of courses related to digital teaching, such as trauma-based instruction and being aware of that, as we have many students in there. Cultural competencies, working with special populations, and those are self-chosen. So we have, I don't have the data on those extra courses, but a weekend, and we have many people who have already jumped in to that process. And just anecdotally, in checking with 2 people today, I've heard good reports. One teacher saying, the more I learn, the more I want to get into this.
So, if we have to open entirely online, if the governor's goal is not met as far as 500 fewer cases, or we have a sudden outbreak in Utah County or something, and we have to open online, is that going to be a mix between our e-school provider and our teachers on Canvas, or are we just going to go, we're using our provider? And then any disruption in the middle, is there a concern with having sort of an online only beginning, and then everybody becomes online for a month and in a different model? How are we balancing that?
So if we were to have a district-wide closure, we wouldn't be using the e-school providers. We would, if a group, a school, or a district is closed for any period the building is, then teachers would be going online and providing, similar to our last term, providing instruction using our district materials and curricula online.
Any other questions?
Kind of
McKay,
a
Melanie,
follow-up
and then
question.
McKay. Melanie?
Just a follow-up question to kind of what McKay was asking. Just to be clear, if somebody chooses eSchool, they're through eSchool for a term, or can they switch back at any time?
We've laid out in the plan that we would like them to stay with it for the term.
The semester.
It really makes things difficult in terms of teacher placements and student placements when we've got students bouncing all over in the district. You might make one move if there's a compelling reason for it, but to have somebody changing programs all the time, it's really going to disrupt their learning. McKay, yeah, go ahead, Jennifer, and then I'll raise my question.
Okay, my question was just about the teachers. I just want to make sure they're taken care of, and how can we address helping them not feel burned out and things like that. So generally, just how much were the teachers involved in helping us make the plan? And then my specific question was, I saw an elementary, so maybe Alex can answer this, but maybe they're gonna have to eat lunch in their classrooms. I thought that was a break for the teachers normally, so what is our plan to help the teachers have a break and still do that social distancing thing?
So, as I mentioned, I've met with a few groups of teachers. There are some individuals who probably wish that we would have had more input from them. We face some challenges on some of the desires that certain teachers have. We have to return to school at some point, but again, we're going to be checking with teachers to find, especially over the next couple of weeks, as things continue to change, they're going to be taken care of. One of the things that I know some districts are doing, and I heard McKay mentioned it earlier, we probably need to find a way to build in some teacher-only time throughout the week, which allows them to feel more comfortable in collaborating and strengthens them and that kind of stuff. Because this online stuff, even with the additional 12 hours, it's going to be tough. It's still an unfamiliar method of getting involved in teaching, especially if you're teaching like a woodshop class or something where you have specialized equipment and specialized techniques and tools. I mean, I'm not minimizing any of the other ones, but many of them can be done online. Some classes just simply, you really do struggle with trying to find a way to teach them online. Regarding the lunch issue, Jason?
You bet. Alex and I both can address that. We, as elementary principals, we have had programs where we've had to rotate people in and out of their classes with having instructional assistants support the coverage of the classroom, so that teachers are still provided that duty-free lunch time frame. And just to address your question overall, you know, I feel like teachers made a huge effort, a valiant effort at the end of the school year to do so much work to enter this unfamiliar territory of teaching online. And we do want to support them if we end up moving back to that kind of a format, which, again, right now I think one of our key elements in all of this is just safety. Safety for all who are involved. So if we end up moving back to an online system where everyone is teaching in that format, we want to help people with being able to understand the day-to-day, being able to take a break, not having to be at the computer beyond what would be considered kind of a normal day's time frame, but even that takes a toll on people. So we'd be working with them on a lot of supports to try to work through how they can continue to teach online, provide support for kids, do face-to-face things through Zoom, but also have some support in knowing how to do that effectively and support themselves both physically and emotionally as they work through that.
And let me add that throughout the summer, even though it is summer hours and people are away, Jason has been keeping in regular contact with Ron Firmage and with Bailey Danielson, updating them on where we're going, asking them for feedback and those kinds of things. So we feel like we've had some really high quality teacher input, although I wouldn't say the quantity has been massive. Okay.
Other questions? Alex, did you have a comment?
No, I just wanted to make sure that we addressed your question there in regards to the lunch. I know that we talked about it a little bit. There may be scenarios where they do need to eat in their lunchroom in their classrooms, but I know the administrators have had systems and routines in place to be able to manage, like when we have a bad weather day, to be able to have kids eat in the classroom or have recess in their classroom, and we supervise them and still give our teachers that duty-free lunch. So principals are working to maximize their schedules, maximize their space, and work to provide a place for them to eat and teachers to be able to decompress for a bit.
Keith, I have a quick question for you, more of a clarification. You were talking about that you want a teacher or students to call in if they're feeling sick to the school nurses. Do we have a school nurse at every single building?
We have a school nurse or a health clerk, so there is the ability to make that contact at every school.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Maybe Stephanie could comment a little bit on how much transportation is a limiting factor on creativity here. So, I mean, certainly if we have double sessions in a day, that's bus routes, that would sort of, how much flexibility do we, anything would have to be sort of the same transportation cost, right?
Yeah, you're right, there's some limiting factors with different ways of approaching schooling. We, council initially talked about, could we do a scenario where kids come for half a day, like 50% of the kids come for half a day, and then they go home, and then the other 50% come. It's not impossible, but it's very challenging. We'd have to spread out the school day itself to allow for all those extra routes in the middle of the day. So you'd probably have to start school earlier and school later. And it would obviously, in that type of scenario, would double your transportation costs. So yeah, there's definitely some challenges with some of these options on how we get kids to and from school in the buses.
Other questions?
So let me just add, McKay, that question is, I think, symbolic of the discussions that we've had to have. You know, we know in the public eye, there are a lot of opinions about whether public school could be run more efficiently or could be better doing it this or that. And I've commented several times over the last few weeks that it's really hard to change our existing system without completely bringing about an imbalance to the things we have. I mean, you do one thing and it's going to affect athletics, or you do another thing, it's going to affect cleaning demands. You do another thing, it's going to impact contact time between students and teachers, and on and on and on. For the faults and flaws that we have in our public education system, we are at a place of equilibrium right now, where all of our priorities appear to be at least minimally met. And that's one of the challenges. I mean, we go and change things to some other model, split the day in half, or any number of those kinds of things. It really impacts many of the other things that people want. If we, and I say this as a former music teacher, if we didn't have instrumental or music classes, we might be able to do something else, but then you miss out on music classes. And if you didn't have such and such CTE or whatever. So we have this equilibrium right now. It seems to be working, and just try to change it, because it's impossible to maintain all of our services without, you know, with a change of any substance. Hours change, demands change, on and on. I don't know if that made sense, but I've been feeling that way for a number of weeks now. There have been a lot of people who have said, oh, here's your big opportunity to completely change and improve public education. But as soon as we talk about removing this program or that program or this opportunity, people say, no, you can't take that, change something else. And that's really one of our challenges here, is because whether we want to admit it or not, we seem to be reasonably comfortable with the programs we run here in Provo.
Other questions?
That was the answer to a question nobody asked.
Other questions?
Oh, thank you.
Keith, I've got one question. In terms of our non-English speaking population, how are we going to reach out and make sure that our non-English speaking population understands these expectations in the plan? And
We're going to get it posted on our website, it'll be translated, and we'll work through Brian Yazzie, who has connections with many of the different cultural committees that we have, and ensure that we can get those distributed.
Good. Yeah, I'm concerned that we make sure that they are adequately informed, that we do good outreach, and there may even be some cultural things we need to be aware of as we move through this, and so having cultural sensitivity. Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other questions?
So if you do approve this tonight, and we'll live with whatever decision you make. We have, Bonnie's been taking great notes here, we have a recording. We will make the corrections and the edits that need to be done. I think that the soonest we would have this posted would be probably Thursday morning, maybe tomorrow afternoon sometime, but it will take a little while to build in those corrections and just do another proofread on this before we release it to the public. But, I mean, people are aware of it by looking in on board docs. So the general messages, I think, are there.
Okay. Is there any other discussion, board, pertaining to this motion to approve the document? I realize that if we don't approve it, there has been some discussion about maybe the need to have a meeting on July 28th.
Or somewhere in there.
Or somewhere in there. That would give us 2 weeks. And we could always, if we decide to not approve this motion, we could come back, we could revisit the document as it's been revised and worked on, and then we could do a formal approval at that time and still meet the August 1st deadline, as I understand it, that we need to meet in terms of having our plan ready to go. Any discussion on that? McKay?
Maybe a discussion to amend the motion then would be that it would send a better message to our community that this really is a work in progress. It really was a work in progress. It wasn't just,
Good.
we're, you know, I think that that's worth it. This is, admittedly, this is so all our professionals have been working really hard for a month, and we're still terrified. Our community is gonna see it for a little while, and they're gonna be terrified. At least we could, you know, make it concrete that we're working on it. We're really working on it. And we're really taking some additional input, and we're really trying to look at the current situation as it evolves. I would prefer to approve it at a later date.
Jennifer?
Would we be able to approve what we have tonight and then with the changes that we talked about, and then at our end of July meeting, we can approve the hybrid portion of it and anything else that might have been adjusted? Because I do feel it's important to let our community, they're already asking questions, they're already feeling like they only know so much and really want to know more. I feel like if we can give them some of that now as they start to make decisions, that would be helpful to give them what we do have.
McKay makes a good point that we can amend the motion with language that would allow us to move forward with the plan as it has been formulated, realizing that at some point in the future, in approximately 2 weeks, we would do something formal. Nate, you're our language guy. What would be a good way that we could amend this motion to take into account receiving the additional input we need and then approaching with the final approval later?
I know you're putting me on the spot there, but probably just what you said.
Why don't we say something, right now the language says I move that we approve the return to school plan. Why don't we add something that says return to school plan as a living document with edits agreed to in study session and further future changes according to circumstances and whatnot.
Much better than my plan, Rebecca.
And I should point out that in the plan itself, there's a reference there to that I had proposed that every board meeting that we hold, we're going to give you an update on what's going on and you know, any updates to the plan and those kinds of things. Because our commitment is there that this is a living document. And whether, honestly, whether you approve it tonight or not, it's going to change in the next 2 weeks. So it's just a matter of, do we have a concrete footing, or is the whole thing going to be up for grabs and editing? There might be some people who say this whole thing is rotten, just start again. Well, I don't have
I'm fine
enough.
approving it as is, as a foundation, just as long as people understand that there will be changes, and as long as we're committed to making sure that the public are aware of the changes, then I'm fine with starting with this foundation.
Yeah.
Because honestly, the schools need time to plan too. I need the schools and the teachers and the principals to get started. So I'm happy to approve it.
I agree with that, and I think, and Keith has alluded to this a couple of times at the very beginning under the heading, the foundational understanding and commitments. We'll continue to align with guidance, we'll continue to adjust, maybe expanding just one of those points to clarify this is a living document, to really reinforce that. I'm with Rebecca. I would like to get something solid, and I think this is solid. I do. I think there's some legitimate things that need to be changed right away. You know, we already talked about. I haven't heard any point of disagreement on any of that. So I would prefer to amend the motion that's on the table.
So maybe amending the motion that we view this as a living document with future revisions to come.
Working on it.
And I think we have to be somewhat careful with that. If we approve it and it's too open-ended, and what's the point of approving it? You know, and so I think the wording would have to be careful. I don't know what it would say exactly. Come on, tell us what to say.
We're working on it.
No, I think, you know, and maybe it does just something under that foundational understanding, something, you know, a paragraph to really emphasize this is a working document. It kind of already says that. You know, we'll adjust as things go.
Kate,
And then I think really solid things like we brought out in the beginning about, you know, the contradiction between the mask mandate and then 2 or 3 places where it says they're recommended. Things like that are easy to fix, and a lot of it is going to have to change. I mean, we could say tonight everything is solid and feel really good about everything, and you know what? Tomorrow something changes.
It all changes.
It requires us to change the plan. So just the reality of what this even is implies that it will need to be changed.
so
Like,
what if we change the motion to read, I move we approve the return to school plan with the aforementioned edits and an understanding it is a living document that will need occasional updates? Or something along those lines.
I think that sounds good. Who made the original motion?
I think
I
Julie
did.
did.
Julie did.
Julie,
Yes, Julie.
would you be willing to accept that amendment to your motion?
yeah, I think so. I mean, what does everybody think of that? Does that say enough? Does that address the
Or
concerns enough?
does that address our ability to?
Bethany, can you
read it?
can you
Read it one
repeat
more
that
time.
one more time?
Okay, and feel free to wordsmith this, because we did it on the fly. I move we approve the return to school plan with the aforementioned edits and an understanding that it is a living document that will need occasional updates, maybe as circumstances change.
That's what I wanted. That's what is exactly what I was going to suggest. According to changing circumstances or as circumstances change.
Right.
And I don't know if we want to include any sort of thing in there that commits us to making sure the public is aware of the changes as well. But I just want to make sure if and when changes are made, the public is made aware through whatever emails or whatever.
I would think that probably is implied in the discussion that as we move forward, we need to communicate with the public.
Yeah, I don't think we have to put it in the motion.
I like that last change.
I don't know if you saved that.
Julie, how do you feel about that? Are you okay with that amendment?
Yeah. Stephanie, do you still have that with that adding what Rebecca just said? No, just to be clear what the motion is.
Yeah, do you want me to reread it?
Yeah, one more time.
Okay.
Yeah, just with that, so that we have the exact wording, one, so that I know what the motion I'm making, and so that Bonnie can record it.
And we're trying to change it on board docs, but Bonnie and I are learning as we go with Shelley being retired. Okay, I move that we approve the return to school plan with the aforementioned edits and an understanding it is a living document that will need occasional updates as circumstances change.
The circumstances. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
good with that.
And who seconded that?
Melanie did it.
Melanie, are you okay to still second that?
I am.
Okay, then, all in favor of the motion as amended and seconded, please indicate. Okay,
Any opposed? Just for verbal?
Thank you.
thank you very much for your great questions and for a good, robust discussion. And we certainly haven't seen the last of this great adventure.
No, you haven't.
Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Motion by Board Member Jensen, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Board Member Bryson. Is there any further discussion on the consent calendar? Hopefully you've had a chance to look at that on the motion. If not, all in favor of the motion to approve the consent calendar, please indicate. Motion passes unanimously. Approved student travel, Superintendent.
No student travel. Thank you very much to my team for all of their work and for the board for all the great questions. Thank you.
I am not aware of any miscellaneous items. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Before we adjourn, can I say something?
Yes.
I just want to, I know some other board members already expressed this, but I just want to give my thanks and praise to our district staff, our school administrators, everybody who's worked so hard on this plan, and you guys have given up your whole summer and are working tirelessly. And I also want to thank the many members of the public who have recognized that and are expressing thanks as well, to recognize that this is a uncharted territory, and I know you guys just are losing sleep over it and wanting to do right by everybody, and I know we're not gonna have a plan that's gonna make everybody happy, but you guys are trying your very best, and I appreciate that, and you're amazing, and you are our community heroes, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, appreciate that, and I would say amen, I agree with everything you said there. And, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
So moved, we're adjourned. Have a wonderful evening, thank you all for being with us this evening. And thank you to those members of the
you,
public
everybody.
who joined us this evening, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Jim, I've got a couple things.